Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub. Apologies about last week. And I'm joined by Chris Hamill and Patrick Van Straten. Today's episode of Sunday Vibes is brought to you by our friends at Budweiser, the official beer partner of the Premier League. The latest episode of Kings of the Premier League is now available to view on Sky On Demand and the Sky Sports Football YouTube channel. So make sure you go and check that out right now. But let's get straight into the questions. The first one, the title question, was sent in by Travis Owen, who says, should United be going in for a new manager, brackets, Pochettino or Allegri, or stick with Ollie even in this current poor form?
Can you hear the
Somebody
groans?
else.
Can you hear the groans already in the comments?
Somebody else
talk about Manchester
But we haven't done a United title. I checked. Go back and check yourselves for quite some time.
All right, so we've earned the right.
Right.
Okay, let's shoot the shit then.
And we need the views.
Okay, should we start with Ollie's, the more positive points surrounding Ollie? So,
Woohoo!
I guess the average age of the squad has come down, although, like I tweeted last week, it's pretty much on a par with Tottenham, with Chelsea. So there's still some deadwood in the squad, isn't there? There's still some senior members of staff on quite healthy wages.
Chelsea do have a very young squad as well, though, don't they? Like you think about.
It's 26.4.
Yeah.
And you're 26.1, which is like the third or fourth youngest squad in the Premier League. So the profile of the team has gotten a little bit better.
Okay.
But it's now been 3 transfer windows. You've only signed, 2 to 3 players of note?
3 players, I'd say, yeah. I think Wan-Bissaka, Maguire and James have all played a lot of football this year.
Daniel James is a 0.5 in that regard. Like
Okay.
he was not supposed to be starting this many games in the right wing, was
No.
he? But my point is, has it gone far enough? Is the leeway that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is now given through playing these youngsters disproportionate to the progression that has been made?
Okay.
Yeah, so I now think you're at a bit of an impasse. I think as soon as Pochettino becomes available, you have to go for him. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been given enough time to provide clarity on what this project is in the long term, and I still think it's very muddled. The waters are very murky, Joseph. They're very muddy, and I don't see where the next sizable progression comes from. That might sound quite damning. It's hard not to like Ollie as a man, right? He's very cordial, very respectful, Robin van Persie aside, and just an extremely nice bloke. But who has he improved since being at the club? Significantly. Rashford's going for a bit of a purple patch now, but he had that in the past, maybe. McTominay. Maybe a better barometer of success will be who he improves. I mean, Lindelof had started to improve under Jose, hadn't he? And this is a centre half who was £30 million. Maybe a better barometer of his success by the end of the season will be who he improves rather than where he finishes. But I also think it's not been easier in the last 5 years to finish in 4th spot. And it looks like you're going to finish 5th or 6th, which is the bare minimum with a wage budget of 320 million, right?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Pato? What are your thoughts on Ollie?
I don't really have an issue with anything he's done. I think he's been totally fine. Like, he's got the squad playing to its talent level, which is maybe 5th or 6th. Like, I think Arsenal have a better squad than them, probably. Like, maybe not as balanced, but they have better talent overall, and Arsenal are in a much worse situation. I think Spurs are at least level with them, talent-wise, probably ahead, and they've been worse off. Like, I think to me, it's just like, I can't imagine looking at Man United and thinking this is the key problem. They just haven't bought enough players. They should have bought more players. Like, they have made the squad younger. That is definitely true, and that is definitely a step in the right direction. And you've got some quality young starters who will be there for a long time, specifically Martial, Rashford, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So you're kind of sorted in those positions. And other guys are not that old. Maguire's not young, but he's not that old. Lindelof is not that young, but not that old. Like, there are players like that as well. But it's just the inability of the club to find the transfers that you need. You need a director of football. You need somebody who's going to come in and say, we're going to ship out all this deadwood, which is hard because you keep giving them new contracts, which are really cushy. We're going to ship out all these guys and we're going to bring in several young ones. And if this year we don't entirely gel and it takes 18 months for the team to gel because we've brought in like 6 or 7 players, so be it, because we're not going to get in the top 4 anyway if we don't bring in a bunch of players. I think they've just been lazy almost in the transfer window. Like, you're turning the highest earning power in world football into pretty mediocre signings and not very many of them. And then you see the players you're linked to and you think there's a plan here in that they're all young, but there's no plan beyond that. Like neither of the Longstaffs should be on Man United's radar. They're not up there.
Well, they bid 35 million for them, didn't
It's
they, in the
nuts.
summer?
25, I think it was.
And-
Much of 35.
Yeah, that was
a lot, mate.
for Sean Longstaff. Yeah, and and Declan Rice is a fine player. I think Declan Rice will probably end up being a good player, but like that is not where you should be
But
looking.
does
You
that
can
not
do
worry
better
you
things.
that they were Ollie's targets as well?
I don't think he has that much control. I think all the evidence is to the contrary. Like I really do, I'm sure that he's involved to some degree, but
that's the profile of player he's asking for. He wants at the club. Longstaff, Declan Rice. You don't think they were his targets?
not solely.
I would
don't
say they're
think they're his
perfectly in line
targets.
with what he wants.
I think he wants young players, and he said he wants young British players. But there's a difference between young British players like Sancho and young British players like Longstaff. Like I'm sure that every manager has the odd bad target, but I think we always end up in the situation when we say like, look at the amazing transfer work that like Klopp has done at Liverpool. Look at the terrible transfer work that so and so's done at this other club, and I just don't think it's how any of it
I
works.
don't think Ollie's has done badly in the transfer market at all.
I just don't think it's him. I just don't. I think he has very
He
little
has the
control.
no support.
I mean, the easy argument is Ed Woodward, right? And we're going to
It's not
revert.
even the easy argument, it is the argument.
Yeah, we'll revert
It
to the
is
board
his fault.
in a minute. But,
Yeah.
okay, go on, say your piece, because I know you're itching.
Well, I just think, I personally don't particularly blame Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's not an outstanding, well-beaten coach. He's not a coach of the level of Pochettino. But I honestly, hand on heart, don't think Pochettino would be doing much better with this squad. Okay, you can level the accusations that we've spent this much money and we spend massive amounts on wages and we're the richest club in the world. We spend it in totally the wrong areas. The recruitment has been horrible. The board and the ownership have been next to useless. Ed Woodward has done very little right in the 7 years he's been in charge of Manchester United. The fact that he's still at the club in a footballing role boggles the mind and hasn't brought a footballing operator in alongside him at very least. But the Glazers have no interest in doing any of that. The Glazers are there to take their money and run. We're still in £511 million worth of debt. We've still spent 800, 900 million pounds in interest payments over the last few years. Ed Woodward in the last 3 years has bought 500,000 shares in Man United at $10 million. So he's not going to have massive interest in moving
And he's
out.
just brokered a £100 million deal with Alibaba, right, in China.
Yeah, and Manchester United, you look at all of that and all of that money that's being pumped out of the club. Old Trafford is crumbling. The roof's leaking. It looks awful inside. If any of you's been to Old Trafford that's watching at home will know exactly what I'm talking about. The ticket office is a total shambles. I saw 15 minutes after kick-off, there was about a 200-person queue to pick up their tickets because it wasn't being handled properly outside the stadium. And yeah, it might be little things like that, but it's indicative of a club that's a shambles shot to bits, top to bottom at the moment. And okay, Ollie isn't a well-beaten coach, but he's kind of just plodding along, doing the best he can with the resources we've got at the moment. But United have no interest in that.
But you're Manchester United. I completely agree. Everything you've said is very sensible. And a lot of the book does start with Ed Woodward. And I feel like I'm the one on this sofa now bashing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Not unnecessarily, but I think there needs to be an element of he needs to be held accountable for some of the performances on the pitch as well. Like his best tactic is ceding possession, having an extremely low amount of passes completed and hitting big teams on the counter-attack. Like this is a guy who, I think with this squad, Pochettino would find a way to unpick, those deep sitting defences, those low block defences.
Using what?
I'd say more so than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We'll get losing to Watford, drawing with an Everton side.
For sure, those are poor results. But he can only play Fred, Pereira, Lingard.
He's got extremely limited options, and you only signed. Okay, you've signed 3 players. You signed 3 players in the summer. Like Real Madrid signed 6, Bayern signed 5, Barcelona signed 4. There's no doubt you should be signing more players.
But not only did we sign, we sold. We sold Lukaku to get a replacement.
Simultaneously, that doesn't help, and you can't change. You can't change an awful lot on the bench, but performance-wise, I think there's definitely. You could definitely get more out of this crop of players.
I totally agree that performances have been average and we've been bumbling by on some good results. Manchester City and Tottenham spring to mind immediately, and some extremely poor results as well. Watford being one of them, the Arsenal performance, the City first half, which is probably the worst I've seen Man United play this season. But I again come back to the boardroom and recruitment, and I don't think it's going to change. I see nothing and no signs that is going to change. I think Ollie's vision of signings is, like Pat said, young, potentially British if they're available, and of a certain character that isn't going to be a prima donna, because that's what United have had over the last few years. And the board are going, okay, how can we get that done on the cheap? Who's the cheap option we can get for that?
I just find it difficult to talk about the board because it's all cloak and daggers, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know, they have been widely maligned. But when you see, so that first half performance against Manchester City, just to pick up on what you said, when you see De Gea starting the game trying to pass it out, because Ollie spoke about the importance of beating the initial press pre-game, didn't he? That was his whole game plan. When you saw De Gea abandon that after 15 minutes and just start punting it long.
But I also looked at who's he passing to, Phil Jones.
It's worrying. Well,
How's
Fred
Phil
as well.
Jones still at the club?
Well, there is that, and that's why I'm not levelling everything at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like, he's a fine coach and a fine guy, but you need a guy who's gonna fill that void, like make up that lack of plug that gap, ability gap. And it's an unfair request, but does Poch do better? Does Allegri do better?
But I look at Pochettino. I think I think Pochettino would get some better results, but he's still going to have to use Phil Jones at centre half.
We assume he'd get some better results.
Pep Guardiola wouldn't be getting the best out of Phil Jones.
Just like it's attributing blame, it is just as much hearsay as kind of saying Poch would get results. I concede that.
Yeah.
I just look at this squad and I just think, I don't know how you get out of the best 11. I see how you could get better perform. If you look at their worst results, then you say, yeah, Man United's first 11 is better than those, should be better than those results. But when you look at the squad and their season overall, I actually think it's hard to imagine somebody getting more out of this squad. I really do. I think the squad.
We often talk about underlying numbers, don't we, on this show? And United's aren't bad. I think they're third for expected goals.
Their defence is good.
For expected
Your
goals,
defensive signings were good, but this is the thing. Okay, so I do think the board thing is a little bit of a red herring in some ways, though. Instead of paying 80 mil for Maguire in the summer, you could have spent, say, 70 mil on another defender. And do you really think that a director of football and an analytics department would have cost you 10 mil? Because it wouldn't. It would cost way less than that.
No, but
then you'd need to invest after that, sure.
But I also think that a footballing operator wouldn't have seen that Leicester wanted 80 million on May the 31st.
Yeah.
Spent 2.5 months pissing about at 70 million and then eventually played 80 million.
No, I agree. But when we're talking about like the Glazers say taking money out of the club, I'm saying that there is money there that could be allocated differently, and that's where it's Ed Woodward's fault. Rather, in that sense, I mean, like the Glazers. Don't get me wrong, like the club falling into disrepair, like the stadium, all that stuff. That's 100% like on the Glazers, but there is money there that could be used slightly differently. You could pay slightly less here and slightly less there, and then take that money and say, right, okay, with this we are going to get like a director of football.
I would agree with
I assume you could get Ralph Rangnick in for like probably $1 million a year.
I would agree with that, and I think that Ed Woodward, whilst doing a good job commercially, just needs that footballing support. And I don't know whether he's got too big of an ego to warrant somebody coming in alongside him, but I certainly think Solskjaer needs that support.
Yeah.
Even if he wasn't at the club, whoever's in charge needs that support on a footballing side, because we've seen Solskjaer not get it, Mourinho not get it, Van Gaal not get it, Moyes not get it. Ever since David Gill left the club, it's not happened. So for me, recruitment is the number one problem at Manchester United from the boardroom. And whichever coach is in charge is going to be, at some stage, thrown under the bus because of it.
I'm just slightly concerned that when people accept, the results under Solskjaer, and in the manner that we're starting to see, that like United are just kind of accepting mediocrity at the moment and talking about these problems the fans are as unassailable. And I just think, you should be demanding better for sure. Particularly, with some of the more granular issues you mentioned about waiting for tickets outside.
It's just basic, isn't it?
The match. That's absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like you need a world-class manager to be that shot in the arm to get you out of this slump. Like Ollie could probably manage the club, if everything was fine behind the scenes. But the reality is, it's not. So. Do you need someone like I can imagine Conte coming into the club, had he not gone to Inter, had we been living in a parallel universe, and overhauling things in a fashion that maybe Ollie hasn't got capacity for?
Potentially, but I think that Ed Woodward or other Ed Woodward like supporters would argue he's tried to do that with Mourinho. Mourinho was his world-class manager that came into the club and failed, other than winning the Europa League, which was a good achievement at the time, and finishing second, really, League Cup as well. But that was certainly the man who he thought was going to come in and just give us an immediate reboot.
And he was the guy who got that backing in the transfer market, and I think in a way that torched goodwill for Solskjaer afterwards.
Yeah,
like as in they were like, right, okay, we're going to give him. Yeah, you gave him those 4 big transfers in that first summer, and it was like, and then when I don't know, what 3 of them were a bust.
Sam was a relative hit. Eric Bailly's probably been a bust. Mkhitaryan's probably been a bust.
Pogba's a relative hit.
hit.
Yeah, so like it's kind of 1 out of 4 if we're calling those like 0.5. So it just feels like after that it was kind of like, right, okay, we've been burnt by that.
Previous to that we've been burnt by Di Maria. Previous to that we've been burnt by Falcao. We've been burnt by so many options. Schweinsteiger, that Woodward must have at some stage gone, this isn't the way to go.
It almost feels like you want a Wenger or a Ferguson. You know, somebody who's going to come in and be like told how much money they have to spend, and then they do everything. It feels like that is what the club wants, because they're like, well, you know, we're not going to get you the structure that you need to help you out behind the scenes. We're not going to go to what used to be called like the continental model of a director of football and then a head coach. So it's like you want like a Ralph Rangnick. Like that's honestly what you should just hire Ralph Rangnick as manager, because you'd be like, you know what? He'll find you players who are cheap, and he will also coach the side. Like at the moment, you're giving like it's like Ollie's in charge of the squad and might have a little say in transfers, and Ed Woodward has too much say in transfers, and it's just I don't know nobody has really got responsibility for these roles who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I would agree. But either way, I don't think he's going to go. I don't think he'll be sacked, Ollie.
Get Poch if you can though, and get Poch if you can.
But even then, like I don't have a problem with him staying at the club.
If he's back.
And I don't know the inner, machinations of the club, and nor do I know really how good a man manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is. We can only say it as we see it. And United, Arsenal have improved markedly under Arteta in 4 games, and not only have they just improved results, like you can see where they're going with the performances, or you can at least see a clear train of thought. Every time I watch United play really well, they follow it up with, and consistency is a big issue. I saw you say in an interview you gave, they've not won 3 games in a row in an awfully long time.
50 weeks, I think, 52 weeks now. Just a year, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're not like adapting to each kind of match day scenario, or it doesn't feel like there's like a high level of like tactical now. So there's like no flexibility or fluidity.
Yeah, and that's definitely a flaw of Ollie, isn't it? He is not a world-class manager on a tactical sense.
He's not like served under one either. Like this is a guy.
Yeah. But you would have said when he first took over, you can see a clear remit of what he's trying to do here at United, in the same way you said about Arteta. We all certainly said that when he won 14.
But his rebound,
games.
which was sizable, wasn't it? He won 14 games in that 2.5 months,
and
he's only won 16 since.
The first 3 or 4 games, everybody was like, you can really see what Ollie's trying to do.
But his rebound was huge because of the dark cloud that Jose Mourinho had become. Right, I don't want to be, only generalise. That's not all going to be down to that, but the players, at least on a one-to-one basis, weren't being led by a man that they had come to hate. Yeah. So I just think you're just asking far too much of Solskjaer, basically.
Yeah, because sometimes sometimes his plan has to be like, we need to unlock a sitting defence. Okay, so our plan for that is playing a really creative player like Paul Pogba. Well, if you don't have Paul Pogba available, then it's really hard to come up with a plan that, unless your plan is like, okay, we've got to turn Fred into a creative star like overnight.
Like pass forward. So
it just feels like I agree that like if everything else, it's a little bit misleading in a way, because I'm not necessarily arguing that they keep Solskjaer. I'm just saying that if they got rid of Solskjaer and didn't solve these other problems, they'll still be bad. Like they won't get much better. If they solve all the other problems, even if they had Solskjaer, I think they could be a lot better. And at that point, then I'd say, right, okay, now go and get that manager. If there are things to be solved with the training ground and stuff, maybe it does help to have somebody, like Ancelotti come in where they're going to say, this is not acceptable, like the state that the training ground is in, and pretty much demand that stuff gets sorted.
And there's very few managers that have the gall to do that.
Yeah.
Is there? And this is what I mean by it's kind of unfair on Ollie, because Manchester United now need an elite manager to get back to where they want to be. Otherwise, I think you'll find yourself in this funk for
Yeah.
quite
I'm just not sure
some
an
time.
elite manager changes anything. I really think that the boardroom level
The
recruitment
right-
is that bad.
The right elite manager might.
Yeah, like listen.
I think what would happen,
Like
this
Pep
is-
Guardiola, you just saying there. Okay, how do we turn Fred into this different profile of player? There's probably 3 or 4 managers that could do that with any one player over like what a 2-month
Poch
period
might be one of
in
those
the
managers
world right now.
But I think what United would do is they would go, okay, let's get Poch in, and we're not giving him any investment. We've signed
When does that
players.
happen
Okay,
for any
okay, but
Manchester United
We've
manager?
signed 3 players in 3 windows.
Okay, but what you hope would happen is, say, if Poch did agree to come, he'd look at the training ground, he'd look at the squad, and he'd make demands. So that's your hope. That like that world class. I'm not saying like a world class manager comes in and makes the team better. I don't really agree about fixing Fred, because I think we've seen even with Pep like struggle with the limitations of guys like Gundogan or Rodri relative to Fernandinho or Otamendi. Like there's only so much you can improve a player. But you might get a manager saying, I'm only going to come if you rebuild the training ground. I'm only going to come if you give me 100 mil to spend.
Yeah.
I'm only going to come if Ed Woodward gets his fingers out of our transfer business. Like that's the sort of stuff that you might need somebody to that guy who has the kind of the name recognition to demand that stuff.
Or it needs a director of football and
Like
add to that level.
Ollie
Yes.
did want to address
That'd
the
be ideal.
culture. Like he's identified the right things. It's just
The
like,
execution
does
of it
he-
is very hard.
Yeah, and does he have the credentials to execute them,
Yeah.
or the experience, or the skill? That's very hard for us to comment
And
on.
I think when it comes to the squad, there's still overhaul and work to be done. There's lots of players there that are probably going to leave. And do I trust that the board are the right people, or not even Solskjaer, that Ed Woodward is the right person to get that done? I don't. I think that signals from giving Phil Jones a 4-year, 5-year contract 2 years ago, giving Smalling a 4-year contract, giving Mata a 2-year
140k a
contract.
week.
The news breaking today that Ashley Young's going to get a new contract to stave off Inter Milan. Do I think that's Ollie's? That's not Ollie doing that, because that's gone over more than one manager now.
And do you know what? The thing that might be difficult for Ollie to swallow is that he might have to go against the culture he's trying to build in the short term in order to benefit United in the long term, or to buy him more time. Like he might have to bring in a James Rodriguez at number 10 rather than opting for like Jadon Sancho in the summer. Because if United lose another 3-4 games and other teams start to pick up, all of a sudden, like waiting to the summer might not become a viable option for him. And we know that United actually hate spending in January. Woodward hates spending in January, doesn't
always.
it? So there's every chance you might not pick up a player,
I know.
despite someone like James Rodriguez being available.
So, we discussed on Extra Time this week a number of different Premier League clubs and what they should be doing in January, but we may as well discuss a little bit about Man United on here to give people a clue of what should be done. There were some suggestions, weren't there, as to players that we thought would be bringing in. James Rodriguez was the key man. We thought it'd be a great loan option on a 6-month loan deal for Manchester United in that 10 slot, right, Pat?
Yeah, I think regardless of everything that we said about Man United, I do actually think that like at least for the run-in of this season, it's actually not that hard to fix them.
Okay.
I think the defence is fine.
Although Maguire has now torn his thigh, isn't it?
Yeah, so we don't know how long that'll be. But even at stages this season when they played, say, Ashley Young at fullback or whatever, the defence has still broadly been fine, even when Wan-Bissaka was out.
Yeah.
But you need a guy who can pass the ball forwards, and Pogba's the only one you have.
And he's injured
You
again.
shouldn't be having guys like Pereira and Lingard soak up huge minutes, though I actually do think that Lingard's a perfectly fine squad player. I'll probably keep him. And then you've got 2 attackers who are great. So I think that James, plus like a DM type, would actually basically see you through to the end of the season. I think you'd be totally fine. Like I really do. And then you could look again in the summer. Like I wouldn't necessarily commit big resources to James, but like say you could get him for a knockdown fee in the summer even, I'd go for that as well. Like I really think Man United have got a ton of money and maybe 2 central midfielders and an attacking mid, and probably a left back.
Yeah,
Like you're not far off.
I was thinking like Alan as well from Napoli.
Yeah.
Said on the podcast.
I mean, it'd be a dream.
very briefly, but just take advantage of that Di Laurentiis situation.
We were kind of saying as well, Emre Can as an option, Thomas Partey
Yeah,
as
if
a
his
potential
buyout's
option.
real,
If he
yeah.
does still have a €50 million buyout clause, Thomas Partey that's rumoured, then that should be taken up. Emre Can I think is available for like €15 million. Would be an upgrade on nearly all of our midfielders probably right now. And then look to readdress with your James Maddisons and Jack Grealishes, whoever you're targeting majorly in the summer. Get by to the summer and try and push for that top 4, because it's not totally out of reach with the right signings. But my concern is United are going to leave this window without signing a single player.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. Like, is Ollie? And this is very hard. This is all speculation again. Very hard to comment on. Like, is he too nice, for want of a better phrase, to be demanding these players, because there's no way that Fergie goes through this window, obviously talking about one of the all-time kind of great authoritarian managers here, or even, in a modern context, like Allegri, Conte, some of these guys, that they go through January without signing someone. But that is I feel like that is quite feasible at this point for United.
Yeah. I mean,
like James Rodriguez, why did you go out and get him?
I know, or on loan at least. I mean, we've been linked with Van der Beek as well over the last few days. I think he'd be a good option for Manchester United. Probably not the levels of James Maddison, Jack Grealish, whoever you want to sign this summer. But United are going to need more than one attacking midfielder. There's a weird notion going around Twitter that we're just one midfielder will do. United need 4 midfielders because there's a clear out coming in the summer. I mean, look at the current state of the midfield. Jesse Lingard's extremely likely to leave. Now he's signed with Mino Raiola, probably in the summer, and hopefully in the summer, not in January. I've got some other names written down here. Pogba's going to go. There's no way he stays. You're going to lose Angel Gomez. He's out of contract in the summer. Chong's going to go. Nemanja Matic is unlikely to stay, I would say, given that he was meant to leave in this window, but there's been so many injuries, he's going to have to stay now. Fosu Mensah's going to go. He's out of contract. Juan Mata could potentially leave the club. The right offer came in. He is now 31.
So this basically leaves Fred and McTominay?
McTominay. Pereira, I would imagine, probably stays. Ollie seems to like him. And that's it.
I suppose Ollie likes him because he's a little bit diverse in his play, isn't it?
Unless he gives Matic
a couple of positions you are struggling for.
A contract extension. That's pretty much it for Manchester United.
Yes, you need 3 mids.
So you need 3 midfielders. You're going to have to go out and get a defensive midfielder. Whether or not that is done in January, I'd like it to be. You're going to have to get 2 attacking midfielders to fill the void left by Lingard, by Pogba, by potentially Mata, by Angel Gomez, by Chong, who's going to leave
and even
as
the
well.
fact you're in this situation is just a damning indictment of the structure, the joined up thinking behind the scenes, isn't it? Because you can't be looking to fix long-term problems in January.
No, totally. And then the news today that Ashley Young isn't going to be allowed to leave the club. There was rumours of a bid coming in from Inter Milan. He was apparently in advanced talks. United have now offered a contract in order to stave off that move. Feels weird. What is he, 34 now? We've got 2 right backs, Dalot and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We've got 2 left backs, Brandon Williams and Luke Shaw. Why is Ashley Young being offered a new contract if that's the case?
And
would feel really strange to me. I don't understand.
And losing Angel Gomez and Taif Chong and signing a 34-year-old onto a long-term deal, that is in direct contrast of the long-term vision, right?
Ollie's apparently trying to do at the club.
This is what I mean by it's unclear.
You've got David De Gea, who is struggling this season, not having his best season, and Romero, who can't play more than 3 games in a row because he's got a serious knee problem, which means he can't train properly. And then you've got Dean Henderson out on loan at Sheffield United, who is a goalkeeper. If he wasn't playing for United, Dean Henderson would be constantly linked with Manchester United as a potential option for them because he's young and English.
So a lot of people at Carrington are apparently saying that De Gea just needs competition now.
Yeah, so I think Dean Henderson will probably come back in the summer and they'll let Sergio Romero go because of that knee injury. And then there's the left back problem. Is Luke Shaw of a standard Manchester United anymore? Do you go out and sign a starting left back? That needs to be addressed. And there's so many issues that need to be addressed in this squad. It's unreal. And we're now 3 windows into Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, and he's signed 3 players.
Yeah, you're asking him to fix these issues with a tactical nous that probably only Pep and a couple of others in world football have.
Yeah, it's an incredibly
and even
difficult
then, that'd be
and
a
complex
hugely
problem.
tall order for them.
But overall, I'm going to say I think United should keep Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for now. Look to sign James on loan and Thomas Partey / Emre Can in January. Do I think it'll happen? No, I don't think we'll sign.
I think they're all pretty sensible.
I don't think we'll sign a single player in January, Man United. Which is crazy. Keep or get rid of Ole?
We'll keep for now.
Keep for now.
I wouldn't have an issue if they kept him, but I think as soon as Pochettino becomes available, if football operations aren't going to change behind the scenes, you just have to keep working your way towards an elite manager, one of the world's best. Yeah.
Okay, so there we have it. What do you guys think about the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer situation at Manchester United? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, moving on to our Kings of the Month. We're going to be talking about who has been smashing it using the power rankings. At number 1 is Emiliano Buendia. Pato, I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, I think Buendia, it now looks like Buendia is good enough to play almost anywhere. He's got 3 assists in 5 this month, which is pretty good. I mean, if Norwich beat the drop, which I still don't think they will, it'll be because of him. But I was looking at some stats the other day, and I think he's in the top 5 in Europe for chances created per 90 minutes. I think he's second in the Prem to De Bruyne. He's also in the top 6 in the Prem for passes into the box. He's also a really good dribbler. His defensive action, incredible, like genuinely a really good defender, which means that the rest of the team has a little bit more freedom. He is the superstar in that side. Like I would take Cantwell out of that side as well. Like if they were to get relegated, I'd look at the fullbacks, I'd look at Godfrey, but Buendia is a guy who, if I were a club like, honestly, I think a Liverpool or a City, I would genuinely have a hard look. And if I were Spurs, I'd immediately drop as much as it took to get him, I think. He really does look that special.
Okay, he is number 1 in the form chart with the power rankings. Hamill, who are you going to go for? Any names mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, hard to dispute Ben Buendia, isn't it? And I tweeted a couple of weeks ago that he would be the ideal pickup for a club like Everton, but he's now kind of moving out of that territory, and it does kind of stink of the Andy Robertson situation where Liverpool will take someone that's just got, physically gifted from a relegation side and make them into a very fine squad player. But if Everton can get him, what an upgrade he would be on Gylfi Sigurdsson at number 10. I think the most through balls as well in open play in the Premier League. Trent Alexander-Arnold, 5 assists this month?
5 assists this month, yeah.
He scored as well, didn't he?
Yeah, against Leicester. Not very far off his total from last season already, right?
Yeah, he's right up there. He's got 12, I think. He's got 8 so far. 12 is his record-breaking season.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy to think he could surpass last season's numbers in terms of creativity. And against, could probably still improve his defending. Yeah, his kind of spatial awareness is defending in one-on-one situations. But when Liverpool are in cruise control and he can boss a game from the right-hand side, yeah, it's just an absolute sight to behold. Who else is in there? What other names we got?
I think we should throw Danny Ings in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just had a superb festive period, hasn't he? Kind of dragging Southampton along single-handedly. I think he's got over 50% of Southampton's goals so far this season, which is no mean feat. I think he's the second highest English goal scorer in the league.
He's broke his record already, hasn't he, for a full season?
Just
what about Abraham? Abraham must be.
I think he might be above.
Really?
Abraham. I think he's got 13. Abraham's got 12.
Oh my god. That's the thing about
Danny
Danny
Ings. It might be the
Ings.
other way around. It's in that sort of region.
Danny Ings is just like, he's amazing when he's fit, and he's currently fit, so he's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I think he's got 9 in his last 10, something like that, which is just
good for Danny Ings, man.
He's doing it all without an obvious kind of attacking partner as well, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's doing it pretty much single-handedly there.
so good.
Southampton must be praying he doesn't pick up an injury, because he is quite an injury player in footballer, isn't he? A couple other names in there. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I thought had a pretty good Christmas period. Not exceptional, but probably his best ever month. Yeah,
we've been critical of him before for kind of being all bluster, right? And no output, not decisive enough in front of goal. And I think he went for a month where he got 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So credit where credit's due. Yeah.
And under a bunch of different guys, like playing in a pressing system under Silva, then playing in
target man.
What I thought was like kind of embarrassing 90s football under Ferguson, and now still doing it under Ancelotti. And if you do it under all 3 of those,
exactly. And Jack Grealish as well had a key month for Aston Villa. Just a fantastic footballer. And I can't wait to see him playing in the United shirt come the summer. Fingers crossed.
Who'd you rather have, Grealish or Maddison?
Probably James Maddison.
Okay.
He is a better player.
I just think
and
that
he's younger.
Grealish's numbers get slightly pumped because everything goes through him. He's also a little bit older, and he's also playing slightly wider than Maddison.
He would cost significantly less, though, right?
He would, definitely, especially if Villa go down. You probably get for half of what you're paying for James Maddison. So hopefully Villa go down, and hopefully we get Jack Grealish. But yeah, that's our Kings of the Month. Why don't you let us know your Kings of the Month in the comments below, and you can click the link in the description if you want to find out more about the Power Rankings. Right, moving on very quickly to Quickfire Questions then. The first one from Ben. He says, which club should Christian Eriksen move to this month?
Oh, who else is just entirely bored of Christian Eriksen?
I agree.
Go to Italy so we never have to think about it again.
I think Christian Eriksen should stay at Tottenham Hotspur for this month, ride it out, and then you'll get a double salary. You'll probably get 100 grand more in the summer.
Juventus will give him 200 grand a week to go there for free, and then Juventus will have to sell Rabiot, they'll have to sell Emre Can, Blaise Matuidi. Who else?
Aaron Ramsey.
Aaron Ramsey. So there'll be loads of decent pickups from Juve in the region of 15 to 20. So hopefully he goes there.
At the same time, if Inter come in for him, I would be tempted.
What, him and Brozovic in the same midfield?
Well, they've just got. Mate. Yeah, they don't have a lot of open play creativity there. I think that would be kind of fun.
Especially as Martinez is a little bit more of a striker this season rather than playing behind the striker.
I think hold out until the summer. and get your PSG contract and go over to France and then you bucks for the last 2-3 years of your life, win league titles and potentially compete deep into the Champions League with Christian Eriksen. Lewis Whittick says, as we enter a new decade, who will be the best player in the world in 10 years?
Mbappe.
God.
Mbappe probably. Yeah. All said Mbappe. Terrible question. I'm not going to lie.
Crystal ball territory.
Not a particularly good question.
Thanks for sending it in there.
Joseph Teague, who has been the most disappointing summer transfer so far this season? Might take a little bit of thinking about.
I was going to say, it's a pretty difficult question to have not prepared for.
Yeah, probably should have thought about this.
Eden Hazard's been a bit disappointing. Like he's been markedly worse at Real Madrid than he was at Chelsea.
Luka Jovic?
Again, because not everything goes through him.
I just feel sorry for Luka Jovic.
Yeah, I don't entirely blame
He's just entered the land of Mariano, hasn't he? Where it's just or is doing so.
He'd
Someone
be a good
someone should pick up Mariano.
Hasn't been good though. I mean, like, hasn't been good. And same, you'd like to see more minutes for Rabiot. He's got under 800 in the league. That's really disappointing given his talent.
And Ramsey, I actually thought Ramsey was going to smash it over Italy, and it's not kind of happened.
Though he was injured for a while, and I still think he'll be all right. But yeah, kind of an old guy, kind of injured. Give him a big contract, wouldn't be.
Maybe De Boer at Sevilla.
I think the most disappointing for me has probably been Ndombele. Just I think he's been great when I've watched him, but it's just not quite happened. Him and Lo Celso, we kind of bigged up as
They've both been
centre-mids to sign.
It's really unfortunate with injuries,
so unlucky,
haven't they?
Isn't it? I think they're both still fantastic players, but Lo Celso was kind of out of favour under Poch and injured, and then Ndombele, obviously we saw the quotes from Jose say that I felt was a bit mad, where he was like, yeah, he's always injured, he's never consistent.
It's a pity because he's been amazing.
Just a fantastic player.
I love watching him.
Hasn't quite happened, and we kind of gave them our mantles of the best centre-mids to sign in the summer, and Tottenham got them both.
Yeah, they're still going to be. I think they'll be very good players for Tottenham. They're now, and I suppose it's a weird dynamic at Tottenham, isn't it? Because is Jose invested in terms of improving them? Or does he just want short-term success and then to move on? It's odd.
You don't want to criticise a guy, who hasn't played that much. Like that's the thing with Lo Celso. It's just really hard to have too much of a problem with somebody when they've just been so consistently injured. I mean, you'd be better off. I think probably, but if they don't, I think Man United should have a think about it. You could make an argument about Pepe, but now he's kind of looking like he's maybe getting into form. He's still at a goal or assist every 2 games. It's fine.
He's like a meme, isn't it? It's like people just love to dig him out, but he's actually fine.
Yeah, especially under Arteta as well. When his defensive numbers go up, I think people will find it very difficult to have a problem with it. If they get 30 to 40 million pounds for Christian Eriksen, just use that to action the buyout clause, right, for Lo Celso.
Yeah.
And then just move on from that whole situation.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's get one personal question then before we wrap up from Jack Egan, who said, favourite book you've read in the last year? Has anybody read a book? So I haven't read a book last year, I don't think.
Last year, for the whole of the year?
I don't think I read a book. Actually, I might have read a Jack Reacher. Can't remember the title of it though, because they all blend into one.
I can imagine you struggling to concentrate to read a book, just getting that nervous energy. Just what's going on Twitter.
Sitting down for too long there.
Yeah. I've just finished Football Hackers by Christopher Bierman, I think.
Good.
I started it a long time ago, lost the book, moved, found the book, finished it. Yeah, it's really good.
It's always about analytics.
Yeah, about people that think differently in football. Do you know that Billy Bean, obviously the whole Moneyball concept was based around him, right? He's now working at Vitesse, I think, in the Eredivisie,
really?
or for AZ Alkmaar, one of them. And there's a lot of clubs just embracing that culture now. Surprisingly, Barnsley, I found that really interesting. And there's some new metrics that I'm gonna get stuck into, like goal impact.
Oh yeah, that's a guy called Jörg Sadel, a German guy, which is kind of this idea of plus minus, goal difference when you're on the pitch. So it's meant to be an all-round rating, but
a bit more holistic.
But I don't know. I'm always a bit suspicious of those because different roles I think are just inevitably going to turn out differently. But I mean, you can trace a line from Billy Bean as well, in the Oakland A's through to Liverpool's success because obviously after his success with the A's, the Boston Red Sox tried to hire him, and the Boston Red Sox are owned by John Henry, and John Henry ended up running Liverpool.
And the guy that inspired Billy Bean took over the Red Sox, right, and then they ended that 100-year curse and won the series 2 years later.
They had
using
they hired Bill James.
Yeah,
Bill James, who was a security guard at a tinned pork and beans factory, and was also writing analytics about baseball on the side. He kind of inspired this whole thing.
Okay.
So
But-
going back to the
question was about
the
books,
question, like one of my New Year's resolutions is to read at least a book a month. What are your New Year's resolutions? You had a thought about it?
I do, but I can't remember. We answered this question last week, and I can't remember. What I
did
said.
you? Oh,
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it? Fair play.
Who was your book anyway? You didn't answer.
The Book of Dust, probably The Secret Commonwealth. The second volume of that was really good.
The Book of Dust.
Yeah,
it's
it's really
massive
good.
as well. Just about to start that.
It's really good.
Better than the
Which
first one? In the new
It's
series.
very different. It's very different to the first one. I probably preferred it. And I'm
decent.
reading A Tale for the Time Being at the moment by Ruth Ozeki.
What's that about?
It's kind of about the tsunami and about Japan.
Okay, so there we have it.
Culture.
Books. What a way to finish this episode of Sunday Vibes. Anyway, make sure you tune into the latest episode of Kings of the Premier League featuring Carlton Cole and Sam Queck, available on demand and on the Sky Sports Football YouTube channel right now to find out who they crowned their Kings of the Month. Brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer partner of the Premier League. If you want to get a question answered next week on Sunday Vibes, put it in the comments below or just tweet it to us during the week. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.